One of the biggest mistakes I see with the driver from amateur golfers is them trying to get too wide in the backswing in a quest to get behind the ball, hit up on the ball, and ultimately create more distance. Yet most of you are doing this completely wrong, and as you try to get more width in your backswing, what you're really doing is robbing yourself of potential power and increasing how far offline you're hitting your driver. Today I'll share with you the truth about width in the golf swing, what the best players are really doing, and how you can achieve that with your own swing, including some drills to do and some key checkpoints to look for when you're filming your swing. The two big issues that trying to get wide in the backswing causes are as follows. Number one, attempting to go wider with your hands and arms in this fashion, as wide and as far back as you can, creates a swing path or direction that ends up becoming too straight. And even though logically it might seem like a good idea to try to swing the club back and straight through, it's actually one of the least powerful ways to do it. In fact, what it really does is creates an over the top or an out to in swing path. When you go back so straight, your arms and club end up being too high, and as you swing down, you start to swing down and across the ball. That causes you to miss hit and to slice, and slicing is anything but the most powerful way to hit the ball. If you slice, you'll know how much distance you're losing as a result of that shot. So the first problem we've got here is when you try to go back too wide, golfers also go back too straight, and that's a huge issue. The second biggest issue with this as you try to get wide is how the golfer starts to shift and move their center, their body mass, too far away from the golf ball. Now, again, this is often sold to you as a power production source, getting behind the ball. It's also sold to you as an idea of hitting up on the driver, which is a good thing, but you do not need to shift and pull your body away from the golf ball in this fashion. Trying to get wide in an attempt to create power is really robbing you of that power, because as you get so far behind the ball, the likelihood is as you swing down, you hang back on this back foot, you start to swing across the ball, and we've already talked about how that creates those weak slices that you don't want to see. So there's two key reasons there why trying to get wide is really hurting your driver game. So rather than wide, what you really need to do is get deep. You need depth in your swing. If I was to describe this picture and this swing as a wide attempt, I'm going to describe this picture or this swing as getting deeper, getting the hands and the club head, the sweet spot of the club, further behind me, far away from this target line as I can. The distance between the target line and the line where my hands and my sweet spot of my club are at the top of the swing represents maximum depth, not width, depth. We can get the depth to the hand path and the depth to the sweet spot of the club coming back down. We are going to be maximizing the use of the angular momentum, swinging on an arc, swinging on a plane. That's what you need if you want to hit your driver as far as you possibly can. And if we look at the best players in the world, regardless of how they do the backswing, which many of you will know, backswings of the best players in the world can look extremely different. The one thing that they all have in common, regardless of how they take this thing back, is that in the downswing, they get this club head and this sweet spot of the club head behind their hands, and they're starting to utilize the arc on which I'm swinging here. They start to utilize that angular momentum, that power source that exists and is built into the fact that we stand to the side of the ball. We want to swing on an arc. All of the players do it. The ones with the best looking swings, someone like Rory has a great example of how he gets the club head and the hands behind him in the downswing. But even the craziest swings that you might look at on the PGA Tour, like Matthew Wolff or Jim Furyk, players who would maybe look at first hand and think they've got a very strange looking swing, but if you look at their downswing, watch how they get the sweet spot of the club tracking behind them. They're utilizing the power of the arc, they're utilizing the angular momentum, and they're hitting the ball far enough to play on the PGA Tour. So let's check out the differences between these two swings. Let's start with the wide swing. I try and get the hands and arms away from me, create as much space as possible here, really get nice and wide in this backswing and see how far I can hit this ball. The first thing I notice about that shot is it's curving to the right. So there's the evidence that we're building in some slice pieces here. That ball carried 239 yards, total distance was 260, and I swung out to in 3.5 degrees. So I'm certainly not utilizing the most powerful way to swing. My club path there was out to in, and that was a result of getting wider, swinging too straight in the backswing, and then hanging back as I hit the ball encouraged me to swing across the ball. So 239 yards of carry. Now let's do it the way I would typically want to see myself do it. Let's see the deeper swing, the depth, the hands and club around me. I'm following the grid lines on the ground here, utilizing the arc, utilizing the power of the arc and the angular momentum that all good players are doing. So this one's going to be much deeper, more around me. See how far we can hit this one. That one felt really nice. Sort of my typical little push draw pattern. Felt quite centered strike. The carry's gone up about 20 yards there. So I've increased how far I hit the ball there by about 20 yards. Pretty centered contact, 281 yard total. So that's, yeah, literally carried 21 yards further, total distance 20 yards further. That was 20 yards just by utilizing the power of the arc. The difference between having this wide, straight swing versus having this shallow swing with more depth. Remember, it's not width that you're after, it's depth. Let's show you how you can practice that. So one of the key pieces here on the ground is the grid that I've got drawn, and I use this hand path string here on the ground to help me have a sense of how the hands should move around me. And if that string was actually extended back, it would just keep taking my hands further and further and further and further and further and further around me. So that's a sense I get with having this guidance on the ground from the grid. Another great checkpoint that you will want to look for when you're swinging down, I'm going to show you this picture right here. This is P6, position 6 in the golf swing. If you haven't learned the Ps or you want to explore that subject a little further, there's a whole range of videos on my channel that talk about the P system, the P positions, and also talk you through all the checkpoints that you'd want to see at each P. P6 is where the shaft is parallel to the ground in the downswing. And there's one key picture I want you guys to be looking for when you're filming your swing. That's this one right here, where the shaft is parallel to the ground. I want to see the club head slightly inside or behind my hands. So the club isn't lined up with my hands, the club isn't outside of my hands. This would be bad. I want to see at P6, I want to see the club head slightly inside the hands. Another nice checkpoint that I use often when describing this for a student would be how the shaft at P6 matches this slightly angled grid line on the ground. That's going to help you swing more into out. That's going to help you utilize the power of the angular momentum that we're swinging on, the power of swinging on an arc. That's going to help you shallow the club and deliver the club head in the most efficient way possible. So swing up to the top, get the hands and club around you, swing down to P6, and just check that the club head is trailing the hands slightly. That's going to allow that nice shallow delivery that we're looking for, and then go ahead and hit one. A great way to think about utilizing this angular momentum and swinging this club head from slightly behind your hands is to think about the way that a field goal kicker would kick a field goal, or a rugby player would kick a penalty or a conversion. These guys are running up to the ball and they're kicking from an angle. Even the soccer players are doing this as well. No one's running up to the ball in a dead straight line, or at least they're not anymore. Years ago, that's how they used to kick field goals, where they would run straight up to the ball in a straight line and kick in a straight line. But they weren't able to kick the ball anywhere near as far as they're able to now by swinging on this arc and kicking their foot on more of this angle. That's the same principles that we're utilizing when it comes to swinging this club around us and getting this club head and shaft slightly inside the hands at P6. Think about a field goal kicker and go ahead and hit the best drives of your life. So that's how you check to see if your club's in the right position on the downswing in order to maximize your power. If you're still struggling to achieve that picture at P6, if you're coming down and you're noticing that your club head's slightly outside your hands or excessively outside your hands, this is a problem. Let me show you a station, a training station that you can set up that will help you to eliminate that problem as well. So I've gone ahead and set up this training station with the noodle at an angle to the ground. That angle is going to more or less match the shaft of my driver, and I've positioned it in such a way that it's going to allow me to conform to these alignments that I've been describing today, how you want the club to come down and have the shaft and club head just inside my hands at P6. I'm going to be able to keep traveling down towards the ball in this shallow fashion and make the most efficient contact, maximize my club speed and maximize my ball speed. Equally, if I was to do this incorrectly and come down too straight, too steep, I'd come down and hit the noodle. Notice here how the club head is now outside of my hand. Not desirable at all to see the club coming down, striking the noodle. The other great thing about this station is if you do try to get too wide in your backswing, you take that club back too straight, you're also going to strike it. So this is giving us some guidance for the club and the hand path on the backswing and the club and the hand path on the downswing. That one felt really good, right out the center. Powerful, small draw. That ball's carried 270, it's going to reach 290. It's probably my longest one of the day. Remember guys, the feedback isn't optional, it's mandatory. The training station is there for a reason. It's going to force you to do it the way you need to do it, and without it, I promise you, you're wasting your time. You're literally just going to the driving range, hitting balls and getting no real benefit out of the session. Take the time to set up the practice station, get the results you're looking for more quickly, and discover just how good a golfer you can be. So some practical advice showing you how depth is more important than width, and you can go and practice that next time you're at the range. If you enjoyed today's video and if you learned something new, please hit that like button and consider subscribing if you're new to the channel. There's lots more videos coming your way soon. If you're looking to explore more driver videos and want to know the answer to the most asked question that I get on this channel, does weight forward work with the driver? Go and check out this video next, which discusses that very subject. This might be the most important driver video you've ever watched.